Hi everyone, it's Lulu. How are you today? As usual, I hope you're doing well. Banks is in the background chewing on a bone. Big bone, femur bone, so if that's what you hear, that's what you hear. Lou on 2. So this is interesting. I am not a story time kind of person. I probably could be. My hair is not red, by the way. It's purple. And I'm coming across very pinky. Now, when I go to edit this, I might be able to color adjust. I don't know, because I've never done that, but there's a first time for everything. Anyway, so here we go. I don't fly. I don't fly at all. Oh, and I'm filming on my iPhone again. I don't fly at all, ever, for any reason. It has to do with, it is a true, people say, oh, I'm paranoid, I'm this, but this is a true phobia. This is part of my anxiety issue that has not been conquered. I have not flown in over 20 years, so it was well before 9/11. Although, boy, 9/11 is almost 20 years, isn't it? Wow. Anyway, used to fly a lot. Long flights, short flights, overnight flights, long history of flying. And one day, it was before we had children, so I had been when I was 30. So I'm gonna say I was, my late 20s. And my husband and I were flying we were landing in Logan in Boston, and we were renting a car and doing the fall foliage, the Connecticut and Hampshire, New Hampshire, etc. And it was so interesting because as we were going to the airport, I was getting a little jittery, which is crazy. We fly all the time. And as we were flying there, something was going on in my head. Like I didn't know what, but something was going on in my head. We landed, we had a great week and a half, 2 weeks, I don't remember how long we went for. Going to the airport, back to Logan, getting on the plane, and I am a wreck. But I'm not, I'm a wreck, and there's no reason. There's absolutely no reason for me to be a wreck. Can't figure out what is wrong with me. Why am I a wreck? This is now going to sound like a fairy tale, but it's true. And if you don't have anxiety, it's very hard to, why can't you logically shut off your brain or stop this recording in your head? So we're flying back, and these are the days where you could still smoke on planes. This was, it was like a rodeo. And I put my jacket on. It was a fall jacket. It had a hood. And I remember out of nowhere, I laughed, but I'm telling you, this was so bad. Out of nowhere, I turned, I looked at my husband, and I said, we're going to die. And he looks up from whatever he was reading. He goes, what? I said, we're about to die. We're going to die. Now, I am believing this with every ounce in my body. It was like I could have picked out the lotto numbers and been, I was sure. We're not going to die. No, you don't understand. This plane is going down, and we are going to die. And now he's looking at me like he's concerned. I'm going to skip to it because this was probably a half hour. I didn't know what to do with myself. So I got up. I had my jacket on. I put my hood up. I'm in the plane now. I put my hood up, and I started walking, pacing up and down the aisle. If this were today, they would have landed the plane, Homeland Security, without a doubt. Without a doubt. They would have restrained me. And I'm walking up and down the aisle in my hood. And I'm saying to myself, oh my God, we're going to die. Oh my God, we're going to die. Oh my God, we're going to die. And pretty soon, I believe this with all my heart. I come up to my husband, who is sitting there and is just looking at me. Oh, it's so hard to explain this. No, first of all, my husband never, ever in his life, ever even remotely at all, ever, nothing, ever laid a hand on me. I looked at him, I stopped at his seat. Now, mind you, if you're on the plane, and I took him, and I'm like, okay, you have to hit me, so I can be passed out because I don't want to be awake when the plane goes down. He is now looking at me like my wife has literally has lost her mind. And people are starting to rumble. And I mean, I'm at the top of my lungs doing this to my husband. You hit me now. I can't be up. And then I stood up and I literally announced to the plane that we are all going to die. Do you understand? We are all going to die. I just went on and on. Finally, again, this was a very long process. And I just can't say enough. There was no logic. There was no brain. There was nothing anyone could say to me. So the stewardesses, flight attendants, back then, called them stewardesses, came to me and were trying to calm me down. Again, this is before 9/11. It was just so different. And they're trying to explain it to me. They're trying to explain safety. And I would have none of it. And the plane was really starting to be in an uproar. More because of the disturbance. More because they thought this crazy woman, you know. I remember we were over Ohio. So it was like mid-flight. And finally, they asked me to go into the, I think the lavatory, whatever it's called. And I don't want to say they locked me in there, but they kind of locked me in there because I was like, at this point, I am crying. I am hysterical. I mean, my face is wet. My nose is running. My heart, my husband just had no idea what to do, like none. When I think about his face now and he's talking to the stewardesses, oh my gosh. So there I spent the rest of the flight in the lavatory. It was a nightmare. So we stopped flying, started doing our country drives, multi-state drives, etc. And then someone told me about a class that they don't do it anymore, but United Airlines had a fear of flying class, and I took it. It was a 2-day class held at the airport in a conference room at O'Hare, led by a pilot and 2 other employees. And one might not have been an employee. One was a psychologist. Or great class. Didn't do a thing for me. I thought I'd go home. We would book our next flight. Everything would be fine. The class had accolades. It didn't do anything for me. I don't remember how many years or whatever is passing, but it was years. And then American Airlines had a fear of flying class, except this had a graduation flight. And I really wanted to fly because we did travel a lot, and I do love driving. I will tell you, I love driving the country of, the United States. I just love the states, the little stops you make along the way, the little shops you find, the little towns you eat lunch in. And but Ben was born by then, and I was like, and we went to Disney a lot. If you know me, we went to Disney twice a year, all the time. Before kids, after kids, as I like to say, pregnant, babies, it didn't matter. After the kids were grown, we went alone. Like, we love Disney. So I took the American Airlines class, much more significant, better. It really focused on coping mechanisms. I don't know all the fancy words, but I remember on day 2, they literally had the classroom set up like a plane. You were sitting, they took you through all the motions. Lots of great coping mechanisms. I remember that morning kissing my husband goodbye in the car. They drove me, both of the boys. Andy was just little. And I thought to myself, I am never going to see them again. Like, I'm going to get on that graduation. I am never going to see. I mean, I was hysterical crying. And that was hard because you don't ever want to upset your children. Andy was really too young. I think he was like 1 or something. And Ben was just, you know, we tried to make light of it and fun of it. And he was like, be brave, Mommy, be brave. I was a wreck. I was a wreck in that class. And I wasn't the only one. I mean, so it was, we went through everything. We went through exercises. We practiced exactly where we were going to sit. And we were getting on a regular flight. We were going to, and it was to Columbus, I believe, or Cleveland. It was someplace. So it was a short flight, but it was a regular, it wasn't just a plane for us. There were probably 20 of us in the class. And so the rest was regular passengers. And we practiced where we would be sitting, what we would be feeling, what we would be hearing, it just everything. The first day was fascinating, the second day, and then it was time to get up and go to the plane. One person did not make it. And I had been using all the coping mechanisms, and they taught us some really great coping mechanisms, and I was using all of them. And I can honestly say I was the worst one in the class. I was the worst one in the class. I mean, the person who didn't get on the plane, obviously, but other than that, everybody else was kind of really ready, like, wow, this is going to be successful. I was shaking, terrified, hardly breathing. So we're on the plane, and they had one of the, because of that, they had one of the I don't know how to say it, but they purposely sat, I was in the, so let's say we took up 5 rows. I was in the back of the fearful flyers. So behind me, literally, were regular passengers. They had one of the psychologists sitting next to me. She had the window seat. I was in the middle. And then they had one of the stronger students sitting to the side of me. You're supposed to bring things with you. So I did. I brought things, coping mechanism things. And that plane started to go off down the runway, and I flipped out. I mean, I'm talking, screaming, crying, I can't do this. I'm talking, and I don't know if they warned the rest of the passengers on this commercial flight if this was taking place. I'm looking around, and everybody else is fine. There were a few people that, again, those of us that were worse, that sat next to coordinators or the pilots or whatever, and you could see them being talked down, and others you could see being very relaxed, like, oh my goodness, I'm doing this. You could see their happy faces. I was screaming, hysterical. I can't do this. The plane was taking off at this point. We're starting to get in the air. I mean, and the psychologist, psychiatrist, whatever, was walking me through the coping mechanisms, walking me through the breathing. Just the person next to me, she was having me use my tools. And one of the very important coping mechanisms that I've used quite a bit since is your brain cannot process 2 things at the same time. Now, that doesn't mean you're not multitasking, but for instance, if right now you started doing, and this was mine, is the multiplication table backwards. So it's somewhat complicated. You really have to think. And let's say at the same time you start thinking about your monthly bills. You can't think about both things at one time. You can very rapidly go back and forth. So the thing is to put in the brain anything except we're going to die, because when you have an anxiety and phobia attack, that's all you're thinking is whatever that phobia is. I'm going to die, I'm going to die, I'm going to die, I'm going to die. And you can't shut it off. You just cannot shut it off. So if instead you're doing 12 times 12 is 120, 144, and then your mind starts to go, and she was there to help me, no, come back. And the other thing they had us do is they had us write a phrase, any phrase, the rain in Spain, and they had us write it on a piece of paper so that, and it was the same phrase over and over and over and over again. And it was supposed to be something to the fact of, I can do this, I am flying, I am fine, I will do this. And so you're reading that, and again, so your brain cannot be going, I'm going to die, because it's reading this. So she's knowing this. Somewhere, very shortly after we took off, out of nowhere, I like took my head out of her shoulder and I stopped and I looked at her and I said, I'm flying. I'm flying. I can fly. The entire plane behind me cheered, like because thank goodness this crazy person is done, but they cheered for me. My class, and I was just totally fine. I was sitting there talking about whatever. I didn't even need my coping mechanisms. I didn't need my cards. I didn't need my pictures. I was completely, totally, like someone took a light switch. I was completely fine. Landed in Cleveland or Columbus, wherever. We had a slight layover. There was a conference room set aside for us with beverages. We all got little like graduation pins, little certificates, as I recall. And they said to, this was, and there may very well be postcards. I have no idea this day and age, but we were to bring a stamp, or they provided us with stamps, and we were supposed to write a postcard to ourselves and mail it to ourselves from the airport. I remember we all did that. As a reminder, a physical reminder, I did this. Got back on the plane, I was fine. Not even a blip of a moment. It was like I used to be, like I used to be. Just getting on a plane was, okay, we're going on vacation, we're going whatever. Not even an ounce of fear. And I'm telling you, that's the kind of flyer I was. Not an ounce of anything. Turbulence, it didn't matter. And I was back to being that person. Anyway, let's fast forward. So we started flying places. I flew alone a few times for business. Everything was fine. And then for some reason, we didn't fly for a while. And then we flew again. We were flying to Disney, and it came back. And I'm on the plane. I wish my husband was here to tell you this. I kept, the air sickness. Do they even have them? I don't even know if they have them on planes anymore. The air sick bags, one after the other. And there were 4 of us, and we couldn't sit together. So it was my husband and my 2 sons. We were on our way to Disney. Did I already say that? And there was me at the aisle, so I was right there with them, and a person next to me. I am telling you, I had to go through, I don't even know how many air sickness bags. And I wasn't retching it was just a very gentle, the waitress, the stewardess, the flight attendant came. I could not stop vomiting. I could not stop vomiting. There was nothing to vomit at this point. My sons, I'm telling you, it wasn't funny. But I wasn't like, oh my God, we're going to die. It was just this, I could not stop vomiting from fear. But I wasn't, again, I had to be brave for the boys. So we landed, and I remember we're waiting for the car. And I was still vomiting. We're to get the rental or whatever. We got to the room, and all I could think of that entire week was, I'm going to have to fly back. And in my head, I'm thinking, I can drive back. I can train back. I'll rent a car. Anything in my mind. But it was a tense week. And I flew back, and I was miserable. But I did it. And so when people say, oh, I cannot stand flying, but I'll do it, I understand that feeling of being terrible, white knuckle, the whole flight, just praying, because I've been there. And then I stopped flying again. And now I haven't flown in 20 years, 22, 23 years. 9/11 happened, but that didn't matter in terms of my fear. It didn't make it worse, didn't make it better. It just was, I didn't fly. It was fine. It was fine. Anyway, I have to fly this Sunday. That's where this is all going. I have to fly. I suppose you don't have to fly. It's for business. I knew when I was negotiating that there were going to be trips to Florida, Cape Canaveral, whatever it's called, Kennedy Space Center. I knew, and I really felt that after what I had seen with VITO, his cancer was very visible. Skin rotting off, bleeding, pain, layers, changing dressings, the stench. It was that was the thing about his cancer. The pain was constant and it was very visible, and we had to deal with it. And so when I was talking to this particular potential client, I thought to myself, I can do anything. I myself have no fear of dying anymore. Like, after what we saw, we heard, we've been through, the emotion, just the whole thing, I thought burying him, taking his clothes, I could do anything. Like, and my sons and we do say that now. Like, nothing is. And I thought that I was fine. And then as this week started to go by, I'm like, I don't think I can do this. No, I can do this. Can I do this? What you've been through, like, this is a cakewalk, a cakewalk. But then I called my doctor yesterday, and I said, I explained the situation. I saw him today. He wrote me meds. He gave me a prescription for double my typical I can never say this word, clonopin. So double the strength, and propranolol, which I guess takes care of physical symptoms, the heartbeat, the blood pressure, the physical symptoms. So if you're not having those physical symptoms, hopefully your mind is more at ease. And the clonopin, I said, can't you come with me and just shoot me with anesthesia for 3 hours? Like, that's really what I want to be completely out of it. So we had a long discussion about this, and worst case is I do land up driving back. I'll be there from Sunday to Friday, land at Orlando, and then drive east. So that's my story. So I don't know where, I don't know where this is going to go. Worst case, Friday night I leave and I drive. So that's my story about not flying. I tried to keep this humorous. I tried to keep it funny, but it's just so hard to explain to somebody when you just can't, whatever it is, you can't leave the house, or you're terrified of cats, or you can't drive, and there's not any amount of logic. There isn't any amount of statistics. Like, you are so sure. I remember during one of the classes, I think it was the second class, she said, you all are sure tomorrow morning the headline of the Chicago Tribune is going to be, class of fearful flyers crashes. You are all positive that is tomorrow's headline, and we were. It wasn't funny. I mean, she was giving a very serious chat with us, and we were. I mean, yet you're doing it, right? You're doing it. And she said, if you were that sure, why aren't you picking lotto tickets? Literally. She said, why aren't you picking the lotto numbers? And we were like, well, we're not sure of that, but we're sure of this. And that's kind of my story. I'm not, we'll see what Sunday brings. I'm armed with my drugs. I do feel, I don't feel, there are no words to express what we went through with Vito, and physically. My dad died of cancer. I've seen cancer deaths. Friends of friends have died of cancer. It's an ugly death, but all of Vito's specialists, his doctors, his nurse practitioners, his oncology, everybody said his particular cancer was so visible, encompassing, like just, anyway, I hope you're all well. So this was Lou on 2, kind of interesting. You all have a good day. Think of me the next time you fly. I'll keep you posted. Maybe I'll vlog from the airport. Maybe not. Take care. Bye.